In Los Angeles, a Starbucks barista apparently gave a police officer a coffee cup with a pig drawn on it. The sheriff's department released a statement on social media saying that the pig is commonly used to demean law enforcement and that the drawing was extremely offensive, inappropriate, and unacceptable. This must be really serious then. Let's see this offensive drawing. Folks, that is a drawing of the internet meme John Pork. Uh, let's hear from the let's hear from the police officer victim, who's definitely not a snowflake. It felt discouraging and disrespectful, especially after a long day of serving the community. All I wanted was caffeine, but instead I left feeling uneasy. And Starbucks clarified, they released a statement. They basically said the cup that was drawn on was never meant to be given out. It was a mistake that the cup had been given to the officer. It was drawn before the cop had even entered the store. And it was just all a big misunderstanding, right? And also that two Starbucks employees had been fired anyways. This is why Starbucks should have a union, because these employees probably wouldn't be fired in such a BS way if they had one. It seems the story has caused a nationwide hysteria among cops. About a week later, we got this story. Starbucks cup drawing controversy stirs Tucson police response. This is a separate incident of an Arizona police officer being served a coffee cup that she believed depicted a pig. It was so bad that the president of the Tucson Police Officers Association addressed the situation. I don't know the intent behind it. I just know the reaction for that officer and the family and for our membership is it's very upsetting to have this happen. He also said that the officer became nauseous upon seeing the image and discarded the rest of her drink. Well, this must be very serious then. Let's see this drawing that caused such an intense reaction. It doesn't even look like a pig. I'm 90% certain that that's supposed to be a bear. Hey, wait a minute. Aren't police officers supposed to be doing, their jobs, not spending their time completely imagining that they are being targeted by drawings on coffee cups? Anyways, we have other stories. Over the past several years, AI-generated images have become harder and harder to distinguish from human-created images, which has been generally worrying for the world of art. A student at the University of Alaska Fairbanks recently staged a sort of protest of his own and was detained after eating AI-generated art at a gallery to protest the school's AI policy. At least 57 of the 160 images in the work were destroyed by the student, and he has been charged with criminal mischief in the 5th degree, which sounds like a made-up charge to me, but whatever. A witness described Graham Granger eating the Polaroids. He was tearing them up and just shoving them in as much as he could, like when you see people in a hot dog eating contest. One thing I find interesting is that the artist was trying to depict AI psychosis, which the artist himself experienced at one point. I think it's actually an interesting subject for an art piece, although I don't know why the artist would use AI to create the art. I feel like if using AI had caused me to lose my connection with reality in the past, I would probably never use it again. AI psychosis can be very serious and cause paranoia or delusions. It's not currently like a clinical diagnosis, but there have been some very shocking cases of AI psychosis in the past couple of years. Like in 2021, a man was allegedly encouraged by an AI chatbot to attempt to assassinate Queen Elizabeth II, which he later attempted to do with a crossbow. Or last year, a man killed his mother and himself after ChatGPT apparently encouraged his delusions that his mother was a Chinese asset. This is serious stuff, folks. Be careful. Be careful with this, especially since it's being shoved down our throats so much. Multiple monkeys were reported roaming the streets of St. Louis in early January, which as of this recording have not been captured, and no one knows where these monkeys have come from, which is weird. The search for these monkeys have been hampered by AI images spread online, with government officials having to spend time sifting through images posted online to determine what's real. Great. And also, there's apparently a goat on the loose. I don't know. Um, so now a government official has stated that the monkeys are now likely being harbored by someone and no longer on the streets. So perhaps someone in the city is illegally keeping these monkeys as pets and they escaped from the owner's house for a brief time before being recaptured by the owner, something like that. Or maybe there's a different explanation. How about this? Did St. Louis's viral primates ever really exist? This article describes how the only verified evidence is from the St. Louis Department of Health, claiming that a St. Louis police officer saw one monkey, in one incident. But then you have this article: St. Louis police say no evidence any officer ever spotted monkeys. So, from what I can tell, there's no evidence that these monkeys exist. This entire story could be an AI hoax, which I don't like. I think that's bad because how are we going to be able to tell the truth in the future, right? Probably not great. Probably not a great sign. There have been a lot of stories in recent years about escaped monkeys. In 2024, several monkeys escaped from a South Carolina research facility called Alpha Genesis. That's a horror movie ass name. And just a few months ago, a truck transporting rhesus monkeys crashed in Mississippi, resulting in several monkeys escaping. The police were called, which is suboptimal because, to my knowledge, police officers are not animal experts.
What kind of monkeys are these, Cornell? They said Reese's. Reese's? Like the peanut butter cup?
And to make matters worse, the police officers were mistakenly told by the driver that the monkeys were dangerous and carrying diseases like herpes and hepatitis C. Police officers did what they do best. They started shooting. And it was a monkey massacre. It went about as poorly as it could have gone, I think. How about this story? Cops forced to explain why AI-generated police report claimed officer transformed into frog. The body cam at some point filmed a movie playing in the background, which happened to be Disney's The Princess and the Frog. But I guess that's the thing. AI generated police reports that summarize audio from body cameras, and apparently it can't tell what a movie is. A police sergeant said about this incident, "That's when we learned the importance of correcting these AI generated reports." I'm surprised that there's still so many people that don't know that AI can be wrong. Waymo passenger jumps out of self-driving car after it stops on rail tracks near oncoming train. Terrifying. This happened in Phoenix. I guess the self-driving car got confused somehow. In any case, it ended up driving on light rail tracks with a passenger inside. A video from a bystander shows the car eventually coming to a complete stop, and the passenger exits the vehicle. He looks surprisingly calm, all things considered. And I guess eventually they got the cars off the train tracks without incident. The train was stopped before it collided with the car. But still, the guy in there was probably like, "Oh, I'm going to try one of these self-driving taxis for the first time today. What's the worst that could happen?" A large winter storm descended on much of the United States through late January, killing dozens of people and leaving hundreds of thousands without power. Of course, it was a busy time for FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association. Some of that work included warning people before the storm, right? However, FEMA found its job harder from a pretty strange new rule. They weren't allowed to use the word ICE for fear of internet mockery. I'm sure no one needed to be warned about icy roads or anything. So if you're confused, FEMA is a department under the United States Department of Homeland Security, and DHS oversees immigration and customs enforcement. I don't know. Could there be any reason why people are mad at ICE right now? Could there be any reason at all? Great. Anyways, phrases like "watch out for ICE" were apparently unacceptable for fear of people making fun online. I'm sure no one needed to be warned about icy roads. It's not like it's a major winter hazard or anything. There was a couple who recently used IVF to have a baby. The problem, however, is that the couple were both white, and when the baby was born, it was Asian. And later DNA testing showed that the baby had no genetic relationship with either parent. So there was some sort of mix up that happened at the IVF clinic, I guess, where this couple's embryo was mixed up with a different parent's embryo. That is weird that a woman could give birth to a baby that's not hers. Science. This is not the only time that there's been a mix up at an IVF clinic. In 2023, there was a white woman in Savannah, Georgia, named Christina Murray that found out that the IVF baby she gave birth to wasn't hers since the baby was black. The baby's biological parents actually successfully sued Murray for custody of the child that was genetically theirs, but who had been raised by Murray for 5 months at that point. After Murray had bonded with the child and it was given to its biological parents. That is messed up, by the way. I'm imagining at these IVF clinics, there's like an intern that's like carrying a tray of embryos and he like drops it. Oh, Butterfingers. Oh no, which one was which? Oh. The cops were called on this naked woman who was swimming in her neighbor's pond. I guess this wasn't even the first incident involving the woman swimming in this pond. Look, I don't know. The police were trying to get the woman out of the pond, but she refused, saying she was, quote, trying to be a mermaid. The cops eventually got her out of the pond, and I thought this detail was crazy. The woman charged at one of the police officers. The woman was tased, but the electrical jolt had zero effect, and she continued towards the officer and then proceeded to kick and punch the officer. I guess sometimes tasers don't work. I didn't know that. Everyone is gangsta until the mermaid is immune to electrocution. In Tenerife South Airport in the Canary Islands, an elderly man tried to board a plane with his wife who was in a wheelchair. However, staff quickly realized that the woman was in fact dead. I guess she had died a few hours earlier in the airport. That was probably not the right way to go about it. I think the man was arrested. Yeah, trying to pass off your dead wife as if she was just another passenger is probably not the best move. To be fair, I don't know exactly what you should do if your wife dies in an airport. I looked it up online, but Google was no help. Anyways, a few weeks ago was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and a company decided to release an interesting product to remember Martin Luther King. Nike and LeBron James released a teal blue shoe, which took inspiration from the teal sign of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis where Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in 1968. I mean, I was expecting it to be bad, but the sign at the motel where he was assassinated, who could have even come up with that? The shoe is also apparently meant to pay homage to LeBron's performance against the Grizzlies in Memphis on MLK Day in 2008. Sure, why not? Nike's shoe was criticized for being tone deaf and inappropriate. Do brands know that they don't have to acknowledge Martin Luther King Jr. Day at all? They literally could do nothing and no one would care. In St. Petersburg, there was a man named Austin Simmons passed out on a park bench. Someone came up to Simmons to see if he was okay, and Simmons allegedly woke up furious, walked towards the alleged victim, and hurled an open ketchup packet at him, leaving the man with ketchup stains on his jacket. Simmons is now being charged with a felony battery charge, probably because Simmons had been convicted of battery in a previous incident in 2019. Simmons now faces up to 5 years in prison for using a ketchup packet as a weapon. Seems a little harsh. Maybe it was a really nice jacket, though. A single elephant on a rampage in India is suspected of killing over 22 people in just 10 days in early January, including a mahout. That's an elephant expert who is trying to stop the elephant in this case. Apparently, villagers were barricading their houses at night because it was killing people when they were sleeping. Terrifying. Male elephants have a hormonal breeding phase called must, where they get super aggressive and angry, which is probably what was happening here. And also, human interactions with wildlife, such as elephants, are becoming more common as the habitat of elephants is destroyed and humans are encroaching on more and more land. Over the past 5 years, 2,800 people in India have died from elephant attacks. That being said, it's not too common for a single elephant to kill so many people. In 2006, a different rogue elephant killed 27 people, which was enough for the elephant to earn the moniker Osama bin Laden. Anyways, my thoughts are with the villagers of India. May your nights be free of elephant attacks. All right, we'll end it with this story. 50 sheep break away from flock and storm German supermarket. Yeah, the German embassy in London created a post online which sums up the incident nicely. 50 runaway sheep rampage through a German supermarket in rural Bavaria, causing sheer mania on Monday morning. After breaking away from their 500 strong herd, the brazen sheep spent 20 minutes around the penny supermarket before U turning and seeing themselves out. That's pretty good.